Good afternoon, my faithful viewers. You're watching another classic David Dudes video. And today we're going to be talking about a little niche, small franchise few have heard of, called Star Wars.
Turn off the flash, you fucking moron.
You know, I was meaning to get this video out for a while, but I got super sick the past couple weeks. You know, I went up for Mother's Day, visited the wife's family, and the nieces and nephews, they got me sick. Carried in some patient zero, super Ebola or something. But, you know, here I am. I was 2 weeks bedridden, surviving off of SpaghettiOs and grilled cheese sandwiches. But now I feel big and strong, so I'm ready to give you guys some quality content. Pretty good times. You know, I'd like to say I was a Star Wars fan. I watched the Clone Wars, watched the prequel trilogies religiously when I was a child, had a bunch of the, memorabilia as you can get. Oh, man, I would hound my dad. I'm like, I want the Mace Windu lightsaber. It's purple. It's so cool. Give me it, please. I kind of gravitated towards the whole sci-fi genre. That's why I'm kind of big into Warhammer now, too. But yeah, it was just a good time, especially, during that time, the early 2000s, the whole prequel trilogies were coming out one by one. It was a whole phenomena. You had so much memorabilia and franchising going out and everything, advertisements out the wazoo. Jar Jar Binks, loved him. You know, they got the little lollipops where you could suck his tongue. Awesome. I never got that. But I'm sure if I did see it, I would have hounded my parents for it. And they probably would have looked at me with utter disgust as I would suck Jar Jar Binks' tongue to get that sweet cherry flavor. But I digress. I don't need to prove how much of a Star Wars fan I am to make a video about Star Wars. And that also goes for you, faithful viewer, because you don't need to prove to anybody that you're a Star Wars fan. You could just like Star Wars. Star Wars isn't about oh, I have all this memorabilia. Look at me. I'm so cool. Oh yeah, look at me. I have 10 lightsabers. I have 5 of the Count Dooku ones. They're so cool. They're so curved. You know, you don't gotta be like that. You know, you like the franchise. But anyways, let's get back to what this video is about. We're talking about the here and the now, and those are with the Skywalkers. Now, Skywalkers and Star Wars are almost synonymous with each other. You can't have Star Wars without the Skywalkers, and you can't have the Skywalkers without Star Wars, especially those being Anakin and Luke Skywalker. They are the respective main characters of each of their trilogies, Luke Skywalker for the original trilogy, Anakin Skywalker for the prequel trilogy. And they kind of lead the whole narrative for the Star Wars. They tell a tale of a father and a son, tragedy and redemption, dark side and light side. And I became fascinated with the storyline again because me and my wife, you know, May 4th came around and we decided to watch all the Star Wars movies again. And we haven't seen those for the better half of a decade, you know. High school comes around here and there. You're not paying attention to Star Wars. You're trying to pass class and, you know, keep it in your pants. When you're teenagers, you don't understand the inner nuances to stuff. You only understand basic information about lightsaber fights, hot characters, and Jar Jar Binks. So I wasn't paying attention to all the cool little interesting parts of the story. But now I have a frontal lobe and it's almost fully developed. So when I started watching these, I was like, oh, this is a really good story. Oh, there's some pretty interesting stuff in here. And that's kind of what I wanted to make this video. I wanted to share with you my thoughts and opinions on Anakin and Luke Skywalker because they're great. And, you know, I just kind of wanted to gush about it, you know? So that's what we're here for. This is going to be split into 2 parts, not just 1 part, 2 parts, because I wanted to get something out for you guys so fast. This video has already been delayed enough. Should have came out probably 2-3 weeks ago. So yeah, this first episode is going to be about Anakin Skywalker and kind of his tragedy and his story and his upbringing. And the next episode is going to be about Luke Skywalker, his upbringing, his work that he had to go through, and his redemption for his father. So let's start talking about the GOAT, my favorite character in Star Wars, Anakin Skywalker.
Are you an angel?
What?
An angel. I heard the deep space pilots talk about them. They're the most beautiful creatures in the universe. They live on the moons of Viego, I think.
You're a funny little boy.
We first see Anakin in the first movie of the prequel trilogy, that being The Phantom Menace. He lives on the outer rim planet of Tatooine, the same planet we see Luke Skywalker on in Episode 4, A New Hope, showing that their fates have been intertwined since the very beginning. And when Anakin appears on screen for the first time, we are greeted by another similar sight from A New Hope. We are met again with a young boy with a bed of blonde hair and a knack for fixing droids. Although we never see Luke Skywalker as a child in the original trilogy, I imagine he looked just like this. He looked just like his father. I think introducing Anakin as a child instead of a teen or adult was a deliberate narrative choice. I think we are meant to see that the future Dark Lord of Evil wasn't always a bad guy from the start. We are met with this innocent youth who has dreams of adventuring across the stars, who loves his mother, and who just wants to be helpful to those around him. And as the story progresses on Tatooine, Anakin's mother Shmi gives even more details about her son, further explaining the remarkability around him, because we are told that Anakin was born of an immaculate conception.
Force is unusually strong with him. That much is clear. Who was his father?
There was no father. I carried him, I gave birth, I raised him. I can't explain what happened.
The Force created Anakin as a stand-in for itself. Anakin was meant to bring order to the Force since his conception. He was made with a purpose, whether he liked it or not. And a very interesting fact that I have, I don't know if it's still canon or not because of all the Disney stuff, or even if it ever was canon, but it was heavily theorized that his conception by the Force was actually because Darth Sidious's master, Darth Plagueis, was messing with the ability to bring people back to life through the Force, which is also another very important topic that we are going to be seeing later on throughout the prequel trilogies. And this created a visceral response by the Force to create balance, and so out comes Anakin Skywalker, the prophesized chosen one. Qui-Gon Jinn noticed this from the very beginning. He probably felt like the first guy who got to scout LeBron, you know? You meet an all-star right here, just from the get-go. At 9 years old, he knew that Anakin was special, and he was determined to bring this kid back to Coruscant him no matter what. His only obstacle now, though, was to free Anakin. And yes, I said free him, because Anakin was born into slavery with his mother. That's actually why Anakin was so excited to see the Jedi in the first place, because he thought that they came to free the slaves. But sadly, he was mistaken. Tatooine is one of the few special planets that we see in Star Wars that is just outside Republic and Imperial territory. It's run by a family of criminals called the Hutts, the iconic Slug family. If there's an evil outside of the Republic territory, they just gotta deal with it, because their taxes don't go to the fat cats in the Senate over back in Coruscant, you know? This is another bold narrative choice and gives us insight into Anakin's corruption later on, because just from watching the original trilogy, you would think Jedis were beacons of hope and unwavering benevolence throughout the galaxy, but now we know this is only for the people within Republic domain. Jedis weren't liberators, they weren't superheroes, they were political peacekeepers. The majority of Jedi did not seek justice throughout the galaxy. Their main responsibility was to the Force. They were tasked with keeping balance to it, but slavery doesn't really tip that scale at all for some reason, so they kind of just ignored that along with other issues that the galaxy was facing. They aligned themselves with the Republic because it was a mutually beneficial agreement. They get supplies and resources, and in return the Jedi act as the heavy artillery for the Republic for intense negotiations with lightsabers, as Anakin would put it.
Negotiations, thank you.
Aggressive negotiations, what's that?
Well, negotiations with a lightsaber.
Furthermore, we see another instance of this cold political ideology of the Jedi when, in an attempt to secure Anakin's freedom in a bet with Watto over the big pod race, he forsakes the possibility of his mother's freedom and then makes no additional attempts to secure it either. Because after Anakin wins the pod race and unknowingly his freedom as well, Qui-Gon secures his chosen one and takes Anakin with him back to Coruscant, forfeiting the well-being of Anakin's mother. Again, are you telling me that a Jedi, within all his power, wouldn't just bring Anakin's mom with them and secure her safety as well? Sure, it might be against the laws on Tatooine, but they're slavers. Watto has no moral high ground in this. I'm sure whatever repercussions would follow this action, the power of the Jedi Council and Republic would smooth out, you know? So I believe that this is a deliberate way to write that the Jedi hold political logic over almost any other emotion when it comes to decision making, which inevitably leads to their downfall at the end of the trilogy. Narratively, again, I love this. I think this adds so much complexity to the Jedi, to the events of the original trilogy, and the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker. I think this adds more reason as to why the Republic fell, because if Jedi acted with maybe a little bit more morality instead of adhering to the political bureaucracy of the Senate, future situations might have been avoided. If their teachings weren't so harsh, maybe Anakin would have turned out just fine. Also, quick sidebar, in no way am I a Sith ideology defender. They're just plain out evil. They have like this unquenchable lust for power, and that's just the nature of their side. In like 90% of the iterations we see of the dark side, they're just straight evil. Like, same goes for the Empire. They just blew up planets for shits and giggles. They're cool from a story perspective, like it's cool to have an absolute evil, because oh lord, am I tired of stories trying to make us feel sympathy for the villain. Just make some guy who sucks, you know? Make like a guy like Darth Sidious who likes to groom little kids. Make somebody like him, you know? And so I can feel good about hating them. But anyways, let's get back to the story, because we will now conclude our Tatooine sequence, because Qui-Gon Jinn tells Anakin the news of his freedom, and that is followed by a painful goodbye between Anakin and his mother, where Anakin promises her that one day he'll be a strong enough Jedi Jedi and free her along with the other slaves too. After this, there's even more bureaucratic bullcrap on the horizon for young Anakin because he has a terrible visit with the Jedi Council when he finally arrives on Coruscant. The Jedi Council saw that Anakin was a prodigy in the Force, but they could also see the fear in him, which in turn made them weary about his training as a Jedi. The fact that the Jedi Council prioritizes the fear in the heart of a 9-year-old who was born into slavery and was just taken away from his mother who's now light years away is just incomprehensible. Anakin's dreams of being a Jedi Knight were crushed from the get-go for just being him, and the Jedi Council saw no remorse in his actions. Like right after this, Yoda just like gets on his phone, goes on to like sports bets, and is just like, ooh, OKC Spurs play today, they do. 5-leg parlay I must hit. Victor Wembanyama, my goat, he is. And then Ki-Adi-Mundi's like over on the side and he's like, they just don't play basketball like they used to. Oh man, Larry Bird. That guy just knew how to shoot the rock. He played the game like how it was supposed to be played. Also, I love Karl Malone. So in the end, they didn't care about this kid's circumstance or his background. They only saw him as a weapon that could lead to their destruction. And obviously, this left a sour taste in Anakin's mouth that never truly left. And also, another out-of-pocket thing that they tell Anakin is like he's too old to be a Jedi. Or like too old to start the training. He's 9 years old. Like, how old can they possibly... Oh my God! 3 years old? You have to be 3 years old to be a Jedi? Well, yes, actually. Jedi like to train younglings from the ripe age of 3 years old, so they don't grow strong attachments with other people. Also, they can be groomed in the way of the Jedi without questioning any of their beliefs. Isn't that crazy? Like, they're groomers. They're all groomers. But obviously, age is just a number in Star Wars. We need to forward the plot. So Anakin gets taken in regardless of the Jedi Council's wishes because they choose to honor the dying wishes of Qui-Gon Jinn, rest in paradise king. This leads to Obi-Wan Kenobi taking Anakin in as his Padawan and basically raising him. I mean, Anakin literally refers to him as the closest thing he has to a father on several occasions throughout the series, which is deliberate, and we will come back to that later. Remember what I said a little while ago about the Jedi thinking that Anakin was a little too old to be a Jedi? Well, they were kind of right, because man, Anakin just can't help but get attached to people. And you know, in his defense, he was born a slave, basically abducted into the Jedi way of thinking, groomed by the Jedi Council and Darth Sidious, also known as the Emperor of Evil, Emperor Palpatine. But it leads him to go into a sad boy incel phase and Attack of the Clones with Padme, who for some reason actually falls in love with him right back. This is why George Lucas should not write romance movies, because it is just so weird. Some of the stuff that Anakin says in Attack of the Clones that made me and my wife visibly like uncomfortable. Like some of the stuff like, oh man, I'm gonna play a clip right here.
Haunted by the kiss that you should never have given me. My heart is beating, hoping that kiss will not become a scar. You are in my very soul, tormenting me. What can I do? I will do anything that you ask. If you're suffering as much as I am, please tell me.
And the craziest thing about that clip, he initiated the kiss, you know? If that doesn't like kind of like make you feel a little gross, you know, I think you gotta like take a step back and kind of see where your brain is at. But even though some of the parts between Padme and Anakin are cringe, this romance was actually stewing since The Phantom Menace. Anakin looked at Padme with longing eyes since he was 9. And in their 10 years apart between the first and second movie, she's been running through this kid's brain nonstop. Attack of the Clones is like the big will they, won't they movie. There's a lot more cringe dialogue. I cannot stress this enough. George Lucas should not be anywhere near teenage romance movies. But you know, on the opposite of the spectrum, maybe he is so good at encapsulating raw teenage romantic cringeness that he should write more. That was a joke. Never write teenage romance again, George Lucas. Also, can we like talk about like the dress that George Lucas specifically designed for Padme? A little weird. You know, that dress is like literally like 2 sizes too small for her. But again, I digress. George Lucas has made what, $1 bajillion from Star Wars? What do I know at this point? But anyways, at the peak of Anakin's uncontrollable teenage angst and emotions, he goes back to finally free his mother from Tatooine, without consulting the Jedi Council, I might add. And you know what? Good for Anakin. The Jedi Council absolutely suck, and I'm pretty sure Ki-Adi-Mundi would eat babies if this was staged in today's time. If it ever comes out and there's no more Ki-Adi-Mundi haters in this world, that means I am dead. I I viscerally hate Ki-Adi-Mundi. Did you also know Ki-Adi-Mundi had a harem? Despite Anakin doing something that has the best intentions for his mother, it doesn't end well for him, and we are met with one of the most gut-wrenching moments in all of the prequels. Because, you see, throughout this movie, Anakin has been burdened with dreams of his dying mother. He confides in this with Padme, and the two decide to rescue her from her slavers in Tatooine. Later on, Anakin meets with Watto again.
Lenny!
And to his dismay, Watto sold his mother a while back, but according to him, she's free now and everything is pretty cool. Well, Anakin is going to be the judge of that, I'll tell you what. We then go to a very familiar moisture farm.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Which is yet another connection to A New Hope, and also gives another connection between Luke Skywalker and Anakin Skywalker. And now we kind of get the reason as to why Luke probably got sent here in hiding when he was a baby. Nevertheless, when Anakin and Padme get there and talk to his recently discovered stepfamily, they are informed that his mother was actually stolen by a group of Tusken Raiders, and that so far they have been unsuccessful in rescuing her. Anger begins to boil in young Anakin. We can tell he thinks this family is weak, and they're part of the reason as to why his mother is not home safe yet. So with haste, Anakin instructs Padme to wait with his stepfamily so he can go rescue his mother, and what Anakin finds is heartbreaking to say the least. You know, we're gonna get a little real here, because this is definitely like one of the most gut-punching moments like in all of the prequel trilogies. So, you know, I want everybody here on their best behavior. Looking at you. When Anakin finally gets to the Raiders camp, he finds the tent that his mother was held hostage in. She is bound by her wrists and covered in bruises and scars. The implication as to what has happened to this woman is absolutely terrifying. But throughout all that pain and suffering she endured, she's finally able to catch a glimpse of her little boy, who is now a powerful Jedi. Her face swells with pride in seeing her son for the first time in 10 years. And after some exchanged words between mother and son, she is finally able to rest.
Now I am complete.
I love. Stay with me, Mom. Everything.
I love.
And she dies in Anakin's arms. Almost as if she knew the entire time Anakin was always coming to save her. In the moments that follow after, Anakin is not a Jedi. He is not a Padawan, and he's not even a Sith. He is a grieving son who lost part of his world. He is a son who broke a promise. He is a son on a path of revenge. In a fit of rage, he then slaughters the entire village of Tusken Raiders. And after the bloodbath, he then makes his way back to the other part of his world that he still has left, Padme Amidala. God, just absolute chills thinking about that moment. Like, it's crazy because that movie's like kind of drags on, especially with all the teenage romance, and then it just hits you hard, you know? It all comes back to the Jedi's inability to understand the importance of how a child needs his mother. However, Anakin doesn't see it like this. He sees it as his own failure to be there for her, that he wasn't strong enough to protect her. This creates a scar in Anakin's heart that never truly heals. This also creates a lust for power in Anakin that gets stirred more and more by Emperor Palpatine, and by the time of Revenge of the Sith, everything reaches a boiling point. After Attack of the Clones and going to Revenge of the Sith, Anakin is kind of known as like the most ruthless and battle hungry of the Jedi. Like, he is not just a knight, he is a warrior. He has been raised for battle in a never ceasing galactic war. In the opening sequence of the movie, during the siege on Coruscant, Anakin eventually ends up in the same room facing off against Count Dooku, another one of Darth Sidious's playthings. This actually was all done as a ruse towards Anakin, because the reason Anakin was even there to fight Dooku was to save the kidnapped Emperor Palpatine. also known as Darth Sidious, who basically tricked Anakin into saving himself to further his evil plan. The last time Dooku and Anakin fought was at the end of Attack of the Clones, and that duel cost Anakin his hand. So it's safe to say Anakin had a score to settle with this guy. And unfortunately for Dooku, Anakin has only gotten stronger since that last battle because he pieces up Dooku, very literally disarms him. My guy Anakin got a 2-for-1 special on this guy's hands, but the fight didn't end there. Palpatine didn't do all of this only for Dooku to have no hands. He sensed the rage in Anakin. This is the guy who embarrassed him years ago. This is the guy who took your hand. This guy doesn't deserve to live. The Emperor feeds into this and tells Anakin,
"Good, Anakin, good. Kill him. Do it."
Dooku is freaking his shit at this point. He like looks at the camera, he's like, and then Anakin slices this guy's head smooth off, dude. And with that, the Emperor knew his plan was working. There was a dark side in Anakin, and it was time to seal the deal. After the attack on Coruscant and the murder of Dooku, more and more events kept happening that caused Anakin to spiral out of control. The biggest being Padme's pregnancy and the subsequent dreams of her dying during childbirth. Anakin's biggest fear comes to light again. He already lost his mother. Now he's going to lose his true love as well? As he ponders what to do, he's also faced with a hard task from the Jedi Council, and that is to spy on Emperor Palpatine. This is because Anakin has the closest relationship to Palpatine, and the Jedi believe this to be an actual friendship, rather than seeing Anakin as being groomed for his power. However, Palpatine already foresees this. He's 10 steps ahead of these chuds on the Jedi Council, and he starts to play the victim card to Anakin, creating a lie that everybody's against him, and then finally baits Anakin by giving him an answer to his fear of loss, a way to bring people back from the dead through the Force.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? The Dark Lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise, he could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians to create life. He could even keep the ones he cared about from dying.
Notice how it all comes full circle, that the theorized reason for Anakin's birth is also the reason for his fall from grace. Ultimately, Anakin rejects Palpatine though, knowing that he should turn him into the council, so he leaves, but it's obvious that Anakin's interest has been piqued, and Emperor Palpatine has played one of the biggest gambles in Star Wars history, because what comes next is one of the largest decisions in the lore of Star Wars. That being Anakin's decision to save Palpatine, kill Master Windu, and take up the mantle of Darth Vader. What comes next absolutely hurts to watch. We see the execution of Order 66, and Anakin slaughters the younglings and a handful of Jedi inside the temple. Emperor Palpatine, aka Darth Sidious's carefully meticulous plan has finally come to fruition. At the time, we only saw 2 known on-screen Jedi to survive the onslaught of Order 66, that being Obi-Wan Kenobi and Master Yoda, which leads us into our Duel of the Fates. We now travel to Mustafar, where Anakin killed the Separatist leaders who were working for Palpatine as a double cross. Padme comes to find him with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and once the 2 parties confront each other, Anakin's rage gets the best of him, and he chokes Padme until she's unconscious. There's actually a whole side plot for this, like, within Star Wars. It was all cut out, that Emperor Palpatine was, like, heavily implying that Obi-Wan and Padme were cheating on Anakin. And so when he saw them together at that time, it kind of like threw him over the edge and he was like, "Oh yeah, you are cheating on me." But that part got cut out. But I think that would have been really cool if they kept that in Revenge of the Sith. Now, Obi-Wan and Anakin proceed to clash lightsabers, making desperate attempts to get one over each other. Their fight sees them clashing in multiple different areas. This is now a battle of good versus evil, and it hits its apex when Obi-Wan Kenobi gets the high ground and Anakin disregards this advantage, leading to the final blows. As Anakin's body gets closer to the hot magma, Obi-Wan tells Anakin that he was like a brother to him. In contrast, Anakin always wanted to see Obi-Wan as his paternal figure, but that feeling wasn't reciprocated. But I will say, it's also unfair to Obi-Wan that he couldn't reciprocate this bond with Anakin. He was thrust into this relationship by his master's dying wish. Kenobi wasn't ready to be a father, but if he wasn't ready, that just means that left room for somebody else to be. So, Emperor Palpatine acted in that role. Palpatine carefully manipulated Anakin throughout his life on Coruscant, under the nose of the Jedi Council and his master Obi-Wan Kenobi. And after the ties between student and master were severed, Palpatine was ready to complete his long course of molding Anakin to the dark side. Anakin Skywalker died on Mustafar. His body was charred, and the only thing that was left in his soul was anger and hatred. But from the ashes, Darth Vader rises, imprisoned in a suit meant to keep him in eternal pain so he would never realize his true potential as the Chosen One. And somewhere else in the galaxy, his wife Padme lays down and dies from a broken heart, not having the will to go on any further, thus completing the prophecy Anakin dreamt from the very beginning of Revenge of the Sith. You see, Anakin was doomed to fail from the start. He was born to fulfill such an intense role to bring order to the Force. He wasn't born out of love or hope. He was born out of necessity. His life up until now has been stringed along by fate, and he never really got to be himself. Sadly, Anakin Skywalker never knew true freedom. He was born a slave on Tatooine and then was taken to be a Jedi at the age of 9. He then completed all the political tasks that the Council asked of him, and he finally became the lapdog to Palpatine's new empire, the tip of the spear in his galactic conquest. He was supposed to be the Chosen One, but everybody around him failed. Nobody could ever see that behind closed doors, a master of evil was grooming him to become a weapon of mass destruction. Anakin never truly had control of his own life, and he would be doomed to live the rest of his life as a shell of what he used to be. His tragedy would ultimately never be redeemed. There will never be anything else other than Darth Vader, is what I would say if there wasn't a new hope that came in a pairing of twins. You see, before Padme died, doctors were able to save their children, who she promptly named Luke and Leia. These two would carry the Skywalker bloodline and would be tasked with redeeming the galaxy in the name of Skywalker, which we will cover in part 2. So that's going to wrap up the video. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Anakin Skywalker is like one of my favorite characters in fiction. And oh man, the stuff that kid goes through, it really hurts, you know? Watching these movies again, you can't help but feel sad when you watch The Phantom Menace and you see him as like a little kid and he has so much joy and spark in him. And you see that slowly get crushed out of him throughout the prequel trilogy. It's heartbreaking, you know? And I feel like a lot of people are waking up to like, you know, how much depth and complexity was in the prequel trilogy and everything, especially that around Jar Jar Binks. You know, some even call him a Sith Lord. But anyways, Anakin Skywalker is kind of my guy. I grew up loving the guy. Especially if you watch the Clone Wars, he's just this ultimate like aura farmer, hype moments and aura guy. You know, he's a very complex character that had a lot of sad moments, and his whole life kind of got taken away from him, which I think makes the story of Luke Skywalker all the more sweet. But anyways, if you guys enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I got some comments in the last video. I had so much fun reading all of them, all 5 of them, and you know, I got way more views than I expected to get. I was expecting maybe like 10 or 15 views. I got like almost 200. So thank you guys. I appreciate every single one of you who subscribe, like, and comment. I appreciate anybody who interacts with the page. You guys are the best. And I hope you guys all the best. And I will be seeing you in the next one.